In today's workshop, we'll be discussing the important topic of spiritual intelligent leadership. But before I begin, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Toby Naji, and I'm an entrepreneur and educator and founder of the BCF Coaching Academy, which is an online education institute for entrepreneurs that want to launch their next big idea. I've also been a serial entrepreneur for over 28 years, a business coach and mentor for over 16 years, and I have been helping educate entrepreneurs for over a decade, being a former university lecturer in entrepreneurship and course developer. I'm also an author and a writer, and I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship, education, and innovation. Let me begin by asking you, have you ever thought about how some of the most famous entrepreneurs of our time are able to become inspirational leaders and build great business empires? It's assumed that great leaders have high levels of emotional intelligence, or EQ, which relate to a high level of empathy and self-awareness, but it takes a certain je ne sais quoi quality to successfully command and master people over and over again. Just for a moment, think of leaders like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, or the late Steve Jobs. Why are leaders like this so revered? Well, they may certainly have a quality called spiritual intelligence. And most of us have heard of IQ and emotional intelligence, or EI. It's also referred to as EQ, or emotional quotient. And IQ was developed at the beginning of the 20th century by psychologists as a way and means to measure intelligence. And the concept of EI was developed in the 1970s by psychologists, which measure things like self-regulation and management, social skills, empathy, motivation and passion, and also self-awareness. But spiritual intelligence is an evolution of EQ and is often referred to as SQ, or spiritual quotient. It's a concept first published by Dana Zohar in 1997. And in 2004, Dana Zohar and Ian Marshall co-authored the groundbreaking book titled Spiritual Capital. And SQ is based on the framework of Daniel Goleman and his work on emotional intelligence in the 1980s. And Zohar proposed spiritual intelligence as an aspect of intelligence that sits above the traditional measure of IQ and various notions of emotional intelligence. It exists at the conscious level of meaning and purpose and is derived from the properties of a living, complex, adaptive system. There are various hierarchies of human intelligences. First is the physical intelligence, and that is body and skillful use of it, such as balance, speed, etc. An example of this, sports person. Then there's mental intelligence, or IQ, and that is mathematical and intellectual intelligences. Example, scientist, engineer, or doctor. Then there's emotional intelligence, and that is managing ourselves and our relationships. Example, leader. And then there's spiritual intelligence, and this is grounded, acting with inner wisdom, guided by compassion. Example of this is a master or sage. And if you're after the highest level in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, this is where spiritual intelligence can be found. But Zohar and Marshall argues that great leadership depends primarily on vision, and not any type of vision, but one that can be appreciated intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. And one reason that visionary leadership is in short supply today is the value of our society places on one particular kind of capital, that's material capital. And this is evident in publicly listed companies and the way they run, and often the key reason why many of these companies underperform, because of their myopic focus on their share price and their returns to shareholders, which often focuses on short-term tactics and strategies as opposed to long-term strategies that can benefit the company and all of its stakeholders, not just shareholders. And this obsession has led to short-term thinking and the narrow pursuit of self-interest. And it's true that financial wealth is important for short-term success of an enterprise, but long-term sustainability requires two other forms of capital also. Firstly, social capital and spiritual capital. Imagine it as a three-layer wedding cake. The top layer is material capital, the middle layer is social capital, and the bottom layer, which supports all three layers, is spiritual capital. And to be successful as an entrepreneurial leader, you must transition beyond emotional intelligence to facilitate your spiritual intelligence. And Fukuyama argues that social capital is measured by, firstly, the amount of trust in society, Second, empathy people feel for each other. Third, commitment to the health of the community. Now, the health of the community can be measured by factors such as the rate of crime, divorce, illiteracy, and litigation. It reflects what an individual or organization exists for, believes in, aspires to, and takes responsibility for, which includes moral capital. And when we map out the three types of intelligence, this is what we can gather. Firstly, IQ. This is the rational intelligence. Its capital is material capital. Its function is what I think. Examples of this are money to spend, to invest, buy material advantage, influence. Whereas emotional intelligence, the capital is social capital, and that is what I feel. So wealth for communities, common good, relationships built on trust, wealth from shared ethical values. And then there's spiritual intelligence, and the capital is spiritual capital, and that is what I am. So wealth in shared meaning, values, shared ultimate purposes, what it means to be human, and meaning and purpose of human life. And it is the power a leader can unleash in individuals or organizations by evoking people's deepest meanings, values, and purposes. And leaders build all three forms of capital by using their own intelligence. And this is intelligence of the mind, the heart, and the spirit. And the brain function of this, the IQ is the left brain, EQ is the right brain, whereas the SQ is the whole brain function. And spiritual intelligence is the intelligence with which we access our deepest meanings, purposes, and highest motivation. It is our moral intelligence giving us an innate ability to distinguish right from wrong. It is the intelligence with which we exercise goodness, truth, beauty, and compassion in our lives. And there are 8 parameters of spiritual intelligence. First, purpose, self-discipline, morality, courage, love, giving, excellence, and detachment. And there are 12 principles of spiritual intelligence according to Zohar and Marshall. Firstly, self-awareness, so knowing what I believe in and value and what deeply motivates me. Second, spontaneity, the living in and being responsive to the moment. Third, being vision and value-led, acting from principles and deep beliefs and living accordingly. Fourth, holism, so seeing larger patterns, relationships and connections and having a sense of belonging. Fifth, compassion, having the quality of feeling with and deep empathy. Sixth, celebration of diversity, valuing other people for their differences, not despite them. Seventh, field independence, so standing against the crowd and having one's own convictions. 8. Humility, having the sense of being a player in a larger drama of one's true place in the world. And humility is the essence of all level 5 leaders, as well as having a high level of will. 9. The tendency to ask fundamental why questions and needing to understand things and get to the bottom of them. And the ability to ask the why question is a fundamental part of critical thinking, but also problem solving. And it is also the fundamental basis of design thinking in what we call the 5 whys. So ask why 5 times to get to the root of the problem. 10th, ability to reframe. So standing back from a situation or problem and seeing the bigger picture or wider context. 11th, positive use of adversity, learning and growing from mistakes, setbacks, and suffering. And finally, 12th, the sense of vocation, so feeling called upon to serve, to give something back. And this is the highest level of self-actualization, and that is being called upon to serve others. Now let's look at creating a whole person. So creating a whole person is all about focusing on all elements of human wellness, including physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And without focusing on all these parameters, your life can become onerous and meaningless. And when creating a whole person, these are the attributes to consider. Firstly, what do I want? Secondly, what does success look like for me? Third, what do I value? Fourth, what do I have? Fifth, what is my purpose? And only then can I discover who I am. However, once you start developing these faculties, only then can you develop the physical, mental, and spiritual resilience required to become a successful entrepreneurial leader. And that brings us to the end of the workshop. Now, before we finish up, I just want to tell you a little bit about our program called Startup Fundamentals, which is an entrepreneurship program and a CPD points accredited course. This program not only helps entrepreneurs develop the next big idea, it also helps entrepreneurs transition from an entrepreneur to an entrepreneurial leader in a 90-day program. There's 4 simple steps. Firstly, you learn, so you discover what customers truly want. Second, you build, so create a product market fit for your product or service. Third, It's a customer validation process where you thoroughly test and validate your idea before you launch. And finally, step 4. This is where you launch your product or service with a go-to-market strategy. If you'd like a further chat about leadership development, let's have a 30-minute one-on-one call via Zoom. And there's the calendar link. Or you can contact me through LinkedIn under Toby Naji. Alternatively, send us an email at support@bcfacademy.education. Or simply just give us a call. And here are our education websites. And please follow us on social media. And if you like this video, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, as we will be bringing more videos to you in the near future. Goodbye for now.